Thank you, thank you, thank you. It means a lot to me. Thank you so many people from the past coming along as well. It's been a great surprise and a huge pleasure to see you all again, and I hope to circulate and talk. And I particularly want to thank Colin and Margaret for coming up, because it's a long way from Devon and it means a lot to me that you've come. And thanks again to everybody who's organised today. So, a lot of the things I was planning to say have been said by Colin and Alan. It's amazing how mine goes back to some similar things. A few recollections of my own. So, Colin described working in the lab, developing the first excimer laser and that sort of thing. But I also remember Sir Keith Burnett working next to me in the next lab. And I was very unpopular, because several times I flooded him out because the pipe came off the laser and flushed water, filling up the basement. And when you fill up a whole basement in Clarendon Lab, that's a lot of water. I wasn't popular. So, interesting, Alan shows a particular example of me working with Martin. Well, I'd had experience. I'd done the same thing myself. So I fully understood what was going on. Anyway, back in '77, we'd got the first really effective excimer laser, and Colin suggested we set up a company. And we did that with John Deach as our lawyer, Alan Corney, who's not here, as our accountant, and myself. And very quickly we moved into copper lasers, and Tony Andrews, wave Tony. Say hi to
can't hear.
Tony Andrews joined us to bring his copper laser expertise in. So we're making excimer lasers and copper lasers. And we operated out of Alan Corney's garage. And for the first couple of years we actually made a profit, because we had no employees, we didn't pay any rent on the premises, and the only time we ever paid anybody was after we'd been paid by the customer. It was great. It gave us a very false sense of security and how easy business was. We learnt later. After a few years, as been said, we moved from a garage, Alan Corney's garage, into the slaughterhouse, and then we owe Keith a huge debt of thanks, because he then started to make the stuff. He chanced his career in getting in there and doing it. And without him to do that, and without Colin's drive to first set up the business and then drive it forward, none of us would be here today. And I want to thank both of them very, very much. I think they deserve it. John Deach did a great job of making sure we stayed on the legal straight and narrow. Alan Corney did the accounts, but he wasn't quite as good as he might have been, because a few years later I got a call from the taxman, and they demanded £2,000 from me, because all my expenses when I travelled to the States for conferences and to sell stuff, he put down as income. And so the taxman said he wanted his cut. And I ended up having to pay £2,000. So thanks, Alan Corney, very much. Anyway, Colin was our chief salesman initially. He sold lasers to all his colleagues around the country, and we were going well. Then we got onto the copper lasers for isotope enrichment, and that developed very well, and we were selling lasers to the British program, the French program, the Japanese program, and it was booming for us. And then the bloody Russians did it again to us. This time they declared peace, and they melted down all their warheads and sold the uranium to the West. Nobody needed new enrichment capacity, and they all closed their programs down, and they damn near closed us down. So, Russians. Anyway, Colin and I did go out to Russia, and I remember it well, and I remember that hotel, and it was terrible. But wonderful. You unplug the TV, because lots of fires are caused by the TV. It's in Russia, or in those days they were, and the plug came out, the whole socket came out. The floors had been varnished, but they'd varnished over the plaster that had fallen on the floors. It was a wonderful example of Russian technology of the time. We went round the lab store, and they had some superb stuff, but it was all handcrafted, and there was nothing that could be made in the West that we could find. Anyway, we survived the trip. Oh, the food was abysmal. Colin, poor old Colin, for 2 weeks. There was nothing you could eat. Nothing you could eat. But anyway, we were growing nicely, making Eximo laser gas purifiers. And I'm sure there must be somebody here who remembers those days. We were making them in batches of 30, and they worked well and made us lots of money. So that was great. But just about the time the Russians did their bit, Landovizhik decided to copy our gas purifiers and stop buying from us. Business was really in trouble. But anyway, we got through it, and we started to grow again, and jumped ahead. We did recruit a lot of people initially from the cloud. So Keith was the first employee, but we recruited people like Graham Naylor, Rhys Lewis, several others, and the joke was nobody ever left Colin's group. They just moved down here and joined Oxford Lasers, and it was a great time. So I was really enjoying life then, because I was doing R&D. That was great. I could blow things up. I could make big bangs, high voltage, and all sorts of things. It was wonderful. Just say a few words about a couple of other people. Dan Hogan came from the Clarendon, first in R&D, but he then very quickly became our sales manager and also my best man. He moved off to the States and got poached by a young lady over there and married her, and we lost it. But he also recruited Patty, who took over the managing of the office over there and is with us today, and hoping you can hear me. So Patty, thank you very much for everything you've done over the years. We had a sales manager replace Dan. International sales manager. He was scared of flying. He hated flying. He would get to the airport and he'd have 2 stiff whiskies the first thing he did as he got on the plane. Didn't do him any good. He had one trip down the west coast where on one flight he was sitting there looking out the window and saw that the engine was on fire. Not what you want when you're scared of flying. He did survive that trip, that flight, but on a subsequent flight on that trip, he didn't sit by the window, he sat in the aisle seat. And then he noticed the guy across the aisle was very quiet. And very sadly, for the rest of the journey, he flew alongside this dead body. So, very sad, but again, not ideal if you're scared of flying. So, he stuck that for a while and then he decided to get a job in the city. Did well. So, but thank you to Noble and thank you to Dan for what they did. About that time, several people joined us who are here today, either still with us in the company, like Richard, lost Richard, I suppose, and Graham, and several others, Kyle, Vince, and of course Chris Clark running it all. So I'm sure that you can talk to the people here and tell them what it was really like working for Oxford Lasers in those days and what it was like with me around. It must have been hard. Anyway, but I thank all those people for all they did, even including those that moved on to elsewhere. We brought Martin in, as Alan said, to set up Micro Machining, and Seamus also. Don't think I've seen Seamus today, but Seamus came along and did a lot of imaging work for us as well. Alan joined us initially for R&D, but later took over the service team and sales and grew into our international sales manager, mainly for sales director, doing all the guide plate. I did invent that trepanning head, and Alan to say, the other vital piece of equipment I used was not just this wedge optic, but a toilet roll cord. Take it to the end of that, put it on a V-groove, turn it, and lo and behold, you could cut beautiful circuits, microcircuits, much better than you could do with an Aerotech stage. But then, Martin took over and turned that into something that worked. And that is absolutely vital. It's great having an idea, but without a team, you can't do anything with it. And what I want to thank everybody here is for being that team. Everybody plays a vital role within the business, and none of us could do it without everybody else. So I just want everybody to applaud and thank everybody else within the business. We got into FPG, writing FPG gratings, and that we got venture capital in to do that. After a stuttering start and some real problems, we were starting to be successful when the telecoms bubble burst. But the reason we were successful was, again, teamwork. We had a build team and an R&D team desperately struggling to get over the problems. But what really pulled us through there was the service team. They went out at the drop of a hat, anywhere in the world, to fix one of these bloody lasers, because they weren't very good to start with, and they fixed the customers as well. And that service team and all the people that were in it, and all the people that supported the service team and also went out, and the manufacturing guys that gave them the bits and flew out as well, pulled us through as a group. And I say, we owe so much to that teamwork and team spirit. Anyway, during the FPG selling, that year that I was selling, I think I did 97 flights. Jonkel nearly divorced me. I was only home one weekend in two, if that. And I got fed up. I hated Montreal Airport. I really hated Montreal Airport. All the FPG companies were based somewhere around that neck of the woods, and I flew through Montreal a couple of dozen times that year. I'm sorry, but it's only the airport. I didn't get to see Montreal, but the airport I hated. But it brought home to me how hard it is being a service engineer, because they do that all the time. And so thank you to the service team for that hard work. We did have a second bad time after the venture capitalists came in, because they came in for the telecoms market. And then, if you remember, that bubble burst, and it burst big. We were selling lasers at £100,000 a pop, so was Coherent, so was Spectrophysics. Within 3 months, you could buy those same lasers from Coherent and Spectrophysics at £3,000, still in the box, unused. That market died. But the one good thing that came from that was that because we were doing badly, the VCs insisted that we got in a new chief executive. And they were instrumental in bringing John into the business. And that was the one really good thing they did. Because John brought in very much needed industrial expertise and savvy that goes with being a businessman. But he also was one of the nicest people who really cared about people. And so he made an ideal person to join Oxford Lasers and lead us through those difficult times. And he's become a good friend, and is still a very good friend to me and to the company. So thank you, John. And I should have said more about Chris Clark over there in those days when he was here, because he really pulled together the manufacturing operation made things work, got us organised, must have been hell herding cats. Yes. But he did it, and he did it cheerfully. And I think he had worked with 1 or 2 people over the years. Looking at Graham. But everything worked out and was great. So thanks, Chris. I've got a few words I could say about venture capitalists, but I don't think they're thinkable. So anyway, we did the management buyout, and the VCs thought we'd be dead within 6 months if we lasted that long. We had a blip in 2008 with the financial market collapse, but we have steadily pulled the business together. We're applying the lessons we've learned. Instead of spending money as we get it, we do try and keep some in the bank. It's a nice idea to actually have money in the bank as a reserve. But I remember things like, I was the acting finance director. Nobody would actually trust me to be finance director, and so I remained acting finance director for about 15, 20 years. I can't remember how long it was. But I spent ages working with suppliers. And I know we curse Aerotech, but we owe them great thanks. We owed them hundreds of thousands of pounds that we couldn't pay them. My job was to persuade them to deliver some more stages to us, so that we could build some more stuff and owe them even more money. And I learned the importance of supply relations. Karen does an amazing job, the rest of the purchasing team does. But we rely on our suppliers. We treat them well. We try to treat them well. We try and treat them with honesty. And we beat them up. We want a better price, but we try to do good by them. We also try to do good by customers, and I think that's part of the reason for our success. Anyway, we enjoyed a renaissance after we bought out the venture capitalists, and we've developed new markets. We're growing strongly. The App Cloud in particular has gone from the early stuff that Martin did, through the work that Graham Rutherford did, and then Mike, and I think Mike, you've now got the biggest team in the company, haven't you? Yep. And brings in a lot of money because we are good. There, we are the best in the world. The whole semiconductor market would collapse without us. It's frightening thought that if this winter we get some power cuts because of the Russians and the politicians, well, nobody's going to get a computer for Christmas. So I hope the power stays on. Anyway, moved into the recent period where we all know it, or all the people that are here know what happened. But a few more specific thank you. Dimitri and Melvin, I want to thank you for putting up with a blunt, stroppy, opinionated Yorkshireman for so long. And I'm not referring to Keith. And I want to thank Richard for all the work you've done in taking over the accounts and keeping us safe from an acting finance director. Carla, you've put up with me and my theories on marketing, despite the fact I know absolutely nothing about marketing, with good humour, and you've managed to get stuff done despite. So well done. Oh, I don't know what. I've got a blank page now. There isn't another one in there. Well, thanking Martin and Alan for everything you've done. I should thank Richard for all he did while he was here. Great shame he left, but we benefited greatly from his time here. Where's Steve? Thanks. Yeah. So, got big shoes to fill, but I gather you're filling them very well. So, thank you for coming and joining us. Anyway, And finally I want to thank my R&D team for putting up with me as well. And all the meetings where I just asked questions, I take it they last a lot less time now. And, but anyway, so thank you everybody for putting up with me, and thank you for everything you've done. Anyway, it's time for me to step back now, let you youngsters get on with things. Hope you are very successful, and I'm just looking forward to watching everything happen from my seat as chairman, who just comes up to quarterly board meetings and everything's wonderful.
Andrew, I think you lost a bit about Colin.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Well, I did say some about Colin, because the drive to start the business. I also want to thank Colin personally for providing me with such inspirational leadership. He's so inventive and knowledgeable, far more knowledgeable than I am. But he's very kind and generous, and one of the nicest people you could imagine working for. And I've enjoyed every minute working with you, Colin. So thank you very much. So thank you everybody, and thank you in particular for making my time at Oxford Lasers very pleasurable. Even in the hard times, working as a team with you guys has been great. So thank you all. Thank you.